Tech and ICA Gruppen and the ICAx Innovation Hub. As you've seen, a lot of people are still dropping into the meeting, and it's so fantastic to see your faces. But I will have to ask you to turn off your cameras and your microphone because there's some new update to Microsoft Teams that makes it kind of tricky for us to do this if I can see you. So sorry, I love the energy of faces, but for this time, mute your microphones if they're not already muted and turn off your camera. Today the camera is for me and for Sofie Karlsson. Sorry about that. Welcome again. My name is Elin Eriksson. I'm the director for Women in Tech Sweden. And I'm really, really proud to welcome you all because it's a big bunch of people joining in today. I think this is one of our record meetups, online meetups with Women in Tech. So it's with great joy that we do this today. And also, what a perfect day to be indoors and by the computer, because that rain's been pouring since, I don't know, yesterday or something. So today, Women in Tech is joining up with the ICA Group. And Women in Tech, I mean, since you're here, you know what we do, but let's just do that gospel one more time. One of the things that we need in this world is more women in the tech industry. We need that because we need to create better teams that create better products that build a better future for us all. And what we at Women in Tech do is that we strive to connect you all with each other so that you get a better network, because that is something that will support you during your work life. And also to make sure to put the highlights and spotlights on some great role models so that you can see it. If you can see it, it's easier to be it. That's one of the things that we truly believe. And ICA Gruppen, they have been a partner with Women in Tech for 2 years now. And when they first joined, we were thrilled because this is a brand that is so well known for all of us in Sweden. They have about 1,900 stores and pharmacies all around the country. And what a great data set they must have was one of the things that I thought about when we first joined forces. And today we're going to talk about something that's even more exciting, which is innovation and how that is done within a big organization like ICA. So what I want to ask more of you is, besides turning off the camera and microphone, also join in on the questions. We have a place in Teams called Q&A, which you can find in the upper right corner. So use that to send in your questions. We have a colleague from ICA, Josephine Nilsson. She will be answering some of your questions straight away, and also make sure to ask questions for Sofie Karlsson, which I can ask her after her talk. So use the Q&A version to ask the questions. I think the chat is also available, but the Q&A makes it easier for me to see what are the real questions. And I'll pick them up later. So let's see. Sofie Karlsson, as I told you in the newsletter, she has one of the coolest titles I've heard. She's Xlead, and I think that sounds like something from Marvel. But she works at the innovation hub ICAx, and we're going to learn about what everyday life is like at an innovation hub inside a big company, and also hopefully some tips and tricks and some do's and don'ts. So the floor and the camera is now yours, Sofie.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and thank you everyone for signing up and showing up. As Elin said, we're really happy about the rain, and we're really happy to see all of you here. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about my role at ICAx, Xlead, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what we've learned and how great we are. So I'm just going to do a short introduction. This left picture is me when I was about 6, 7, and it's also the perfect capture of my personality. I'm a very outgoing social introvert who hides in a corner when I need energy and focus. So my background in terms of education is that I did business in Uppsala University and then Stockholm School of Economics. I focused in marketing, but also a lot of consumer insights and customer understanding. And my career started there in sort of strategies based on needs and customer insights. So I did a lot of research, 1 billion focus groups, and I really learned a lot about how to understand underlying needs. And in 2013, I started working for Moviento, which was then an award-winning app development agency. I'm sorry if I said that wrong. But I was fortunate enough to be a part of the development to sort of an innovation agency, a design agency. And I also was very fortunate to meet Celia Saki, who I'm hoping is joining us from Tokyo tonight, who taught me a lot about working with design thinking, lean startup methodologies, and also agile product development. So I got to do a lot of fun different projects, from going to the US to trail a paper salesman, to going to Iceland and work with the social services, and just sitting in a cinema looking at people. All of that was work, and I was very fortunate to learn all of these things from you, Celia, and to also get the chance to do all of these fun projects. In 2018, I wanted to do something else, and I got the chance to come to ICA. This is a picture of me and Sam, my boss. And at ICA, as Elin said, I'm an Xlead, which doesn't really mean anything to you guys, and not that much internally either, unfortunately. It means that I'm running projects, but I'm also responsible for our methods and tools and making sure that we keep developing the way we work and don't get stale. And I think that's what I'm going to say about me. If you have any questions or thoughts about my background, just hit up the chat and we can talk about it in the end. I'm also going to share, though, my motivational quote about why I really like working in innovation. And this comes from sort of a little bit of a good girl. I think the best thing about working in innovation is that you can't fail, because everything can be packaged as a learning. And I think it gives a nice space and a nice breather to you if you think about your job that way. Don't take it so seriously. As long as you're moving forward and learning, you're doing a good job. And I want to start sort of creating a little bit of context and talking about working innovation, because I do find that a lot of people have ideas and thoughts on what kind of skills you need, what kind of person you need to be, or what kind of sort of background you need to have to work in innovation. And I might agree or disagree, we'll see. But I'm going to start a little bit with a quote, and I'm going to start with the second highlight, and I know that you're reading it on your screens. But in a sense, each act of innovation is a unique feat, a leap of the individual or the collective imagination that can be neither predicted nor reproduced. Innovation, in short, is anything but business as usual. And this I agree with. Innovation needs to be sort of outside of business as usual. You need to try new things, you need to do things differently, or you need to just try and fail. You need to have a space to do things that the organization maybe haven't done before. So I really feel that this is a good way to talk about innovation. If we look at the first part, innovation is not like most other business functions, activities. There are no reliable templates, rules, processes, or even measures of success. That's where they lose me, because I don't agree. And I do think that this is the biggest the biggest mistake that people make around how it works to work in innovation, that it's this sort of myth about the great big idea and deep creativity, crazy people who can see in the future. And that's the people who are successful in innovation. I actually believe this, that innovation almost never fails due to a lack of creativity. It almost always fails because of lack of discipline. And I know and I understand that that sounds really boring. It takes away the fluff. It takes away a little bit about the sweetness. But I think that lack of good ideas or opportunities or problems to solve is not the barrier. So what does this mean? What does this mean? Well, I want to talk about this because it gives context to ICAx. ICAx, we're not a bunch of people sitting and having the best ideas, but we are sort of a collector of ideas. We get ideas from our great organization, we get them from the industry, from trends, even from competitors, and we collect them. And what we do is we take them from sort of high-level, intangible could-bes to more tangible experiments, learnings, and decisions. So really, I'd say that the role of ICAx is, moving from something that's very fluffy to something we know more about, and something that we learn, and something that we have sort of moved closer to an understanding of. That's really what I see innovation and the context to ICAx is. So let me tell you about ICAx. I'm going to start a little bit, especially now that we had to sort of skip through the Menti, to talk a little bit about the ICA Group, because we do have a lot of different companies within the group. The insurance company, the real estate company, and the bank. We also have the pharmacy and Min Doktor, and we own a Baltic chain called Rimi. So we are actually operating on a lot of different markets. What's very unique about the ICA Group is, though it's a public company, it's also in large owned by by the merchants. So free merchants in collaboration is sort of the core of ICA. It means that they came together to do purchasing, and we still have 1,300 Swedish shopkeepers and merchants that actually are competitors, but that are working together every day in this organization. And that's the reality that ICAx lives in, and it's also the reality of ICA. And I think that sort of gives a really nice and interesting way of working. So if we move on a little bit to ICAx. ICAx is, as mentioned, the innovation group, or sort of the innovation hub for the group. It's it's a group that works both with internal projects. So we work together with the organizations to do innovation projects. We also work with partners, both startups and other organizations. We have a board group, or styrgrupp in Swedish, that sort of consists of the different OpCos CEOs and also the group CEO. We are about 10 people, 12 people. It's hard to say because we have an exchange program. Not hard to say, but I'm a little bit unsure because we do have the exchange program, which means that people from around the organization comes to ICAx for a year and work with our methods and our projects. So we're about 12 people, and we have very much a scalable setup where we work with partners and consultants to be able to run our projects. And our mission is to explore, experiment, and create the future business of ICA. And this really means that what we're doing is focusing on innovations, not innovators. So we're not trying to sort of talk about what we do that much, except, right now. We should take a step beyond the great business development departments that are existing all over in the different OpCos. And we are looking at things that might not seem as an ICA thing to do, like new business models, new service area, and of course future tech, to develop sort of an idea of, is this something that we want to continue doing? And we talk about the future business of ICA. That can be strengthening the current, but it could also be new businesses that we don't really work with today. So we have 4 core values, and this might sound like something we just say, but I would say that both our team, our projects, and sort of the way we work is really guided by these 4. The first one is be experimenting always. I think it's pretty easy to understand, but it's really something that we try to do not only in our projects, but in our processes, in our meetings. We always start with a check-in and a med for a while, and then we change to doing something else. We just try to keep it fresh. Have a humble attitude and get in their shoes. This is really about understanding our customers and understanding the people that we're solving problems for. But that also means the merchants, and it also means the organization. To get in their shoes really mean understanding their priorities and their ways of working in order to get the best results. Then we have act brave and challenge status quo, which I also call be annoying, which means, have the energy and the grit to continue doing things differently, even though you might run into a wall every now and then. And then we have the last one, which I think a lot of people working in innovation can recognize. Do, then redo, and then redo again. This is really about an innovation project often takes you places where you didn't think. As long as it's a forward motion, it's a good motion, but you have to be open and comfortable with sort of not landing in the space that you thought. And you have to be able to sort of be flexible around that. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of our projects. This is a project called ICA to Go, which is, we're running this with several different stores and have some different setups, but it's really giving customer access to the stores when they're not open. So extending the opening hours. You have the example here from Richard, a merchant in Sillerud, who managed to increase his opening hours to from 6 to 24 instead of 9 to 6. So he's able to let people in the store and do their shopping without any personnel. We then have this. This is a service called Pronto, which we've developed together with the organization. And it's really an express delivery service with groceries and food. And this was developed sort of as an extension of our offering for what we call spontaneous digital, so that people can, do their shopping from home. And during the pandemic, I think it's really interesting. We managed to roll this out to over 100 stores in just 2 weeks to help the merchants reach people who couldn't come to the stores. And I think that shows innovation in its greatest form. You build something and then it becomes something else because of what people actually need. And here's a little bit of an overview of different things. And I think it's important to remember when we talk about what we do, that certain things are just ideas and very, very loose concepts, stuff that we've just thought about and haven't really gone anywhere with. And some things are stuff that never came to the market. So if you look at the left corner, we worked with a company called Mykorrhiza, which was an experiment around taking out edible protein from the waste of the stores. It's currently still living within the ICA organization, but it was a very interesting project. And then we have the zero packaging, which was really more of a concept thought, an idea that we didn't really do anything else with. We have Taxica, which is, what do you think it is? It's a collaboration with a taxi company and seeing what that could be. We didn't really move forward with that, but I think it's important to show, different things we've done. Then we have, to the left here, we have some health initiatives. We have ICA Dietister, which is something you can read on also on the homepage. It's a collaboration with the pharmacy and ICA and ICAx, where we give, advice around healthy choices in the stores. We also did a collaboration with Wear Labs a few years ago, where we allowed people to get food recommendation based on the results on their blood works. And then we also have an insurance wallet. It's a service we did together with the insurance company that helped people make better decisions. So as you see, it's a variety of things that we do. And I have now talked a little bit about what we do, and I'm going to go a little bit more into detail on how we do it. And spoiler alert, I'm not going to be like, this is the big secret, because again, grit and discipline. I'm going to start talking about our process. We talk about our process as a combination of design thinking, methodology, and lean startup project management. And I think most of you out there working with innovation, that's what you talk about. So we have the first phase, which is really a research phase, or phase zero, we call it. And that's where we really try to understand, is the problem relevant? Meaning, is this something that we think that we should start working with? And that can be a big research project on different themes, or it can be just a small 2-week thing where we look into stuff. We then have phase one, is the problem worth solving, or are we the right fit? Meaning both ICAx or ICA. And this is more where we sort of still try to focus on the problem with the design thinking methodology in not the solutions. We really try to understand what are the underlying needs, are we the right fit to solve them? And this can also look very different. Phase one can be a little experiment that we do in store. It can be interviews with experts, or it can be sort of something bigger than that. Then we have phase two, which is how do we solve it? This is when we sort of define that this is something we should do and we should continue working with. And how do we solve it is different solutions. We move into solution area, but we still look at different solutions. We test and we try and we combine. And then we move on to phase three, which is still in beta, but this is where we really start building things. When we looked at Pronto, for example, that was something that we tried in the stores in phase three. This is usually quite a done project, but still a beta. We can still close it down here. I think it's important to remember. And some of our projects go through all of the phases. Some linger in one phase, and some get killed in phase one. That's really how our process works. And then we have the fourth, which is how can we scale it? And here we look at either we do the scaling together with, the operations where they land, or we do it in incubator style where we continue working with it as ICAx, and we can set up a small organization within our organization that works with that. And we really have two different types of projects. We have what we call accelerator projects where there's a clear and defined end for the project. And we have new business project, which is new business projects without a clear receiver or destination in the organization. And regardless of what phase we are in our projects, we also have sort of a setup how we work. And that's, of course, based on design thinking and and lean startup. So we start with assumptions, try to understand what is facts and what is something we think we know. We move from the passive assumption to hypothesis, where we really try to sort of formulate it as something we can research. Instead of saying we know this or we don't know it, we try to say, we know, classic agile way of writing hypothesis. We think that this is going to happen if we do this, and we know it's true when. We then do prioritization and experiments. And prioritization is really sort of where we try to take the leap of faith assumptions. We try to do the hardest things first. The things we don't really know how to solve, but that has a huge impact on the projects. What's the business model going to look like maybe, or what's the consumer going to think about this? And then we start doing experiments, and then a lot of dots came. When we do experiments, we get learnings, and that usually means that we reframe the hypothesis. And I think that's important to say, that hypothesis is not a goal. It's not something we want to prove. A disproved hypothesis is just as good. So it's about learning, experiment, and then you do that cycle a few times. And then maybe you get to some sort of result and decision. The decision can be need to know more. The decision can be not continuing or moving on to another phase. So I know it looks a little messy, but that's also the way that innovation project usually works. So that's ICAx. Sounds pretty good, no? I think we have it all figured out. Obviously we don't. Sounds good, doesn't really work. Being a hub since 2018, of course, there's been a lot of things that has failed and a lot of things that we would do differently. So this being a behind-the-scenes setup, I really think that that's what I'm going to talk a little bit about now. What are our challenges and fails so far? And first of all, I'm going to show you the non-liner setup. Of course, an innovation project doesn't look the way we wish it would. This is more of a true one. It comes from UNCR Innovation Service, but I think it's true for all of us. And then I'm going to show you a little clip from an interview with a few of our users from our unintended stores.
Nej.
Inte?
Nej.
Vad kommer det sig då?
Nej, jag tycker inte om det.
På vilket sätt?
Obemannat.
Okej.
Mm.
Var ska du och handla då?
Ingenstans här.
Ingenstans här?
Nej.
Är du inte härifrån?
Jo, men jag handlar på stan.
Okej.
Ja.
Det har inte blivit av. Jag vet inte riktigt hur det fungerar heller. Man ska ju skanna och det är mycket sånt.
Men vad betyder det för de som bor här att det finns en möjlighet att gå och handla?
Telefonen gör. Alltså går det inte.
Nej.
Nej, man måste ha en pektelefon alltså. Så alla har inte laddat ner appen och försökt.
Jag tycker inte om den alls.
Jaså?
Jag har ju ingen sån app på min telefon då. Annars går det inte att gå in där borta. Jag vill inte gå dit heller.
Varför inte då?
Nej, inte en har sån där. För jag har vanlig telefon.
Så det problemet är att du har en för gammal telefon?
Ja.
Okej.
Det är det.
Så det är lite krångligt med de här apparna?
Ja, det är det. Jag lägger den på bussen. Den måste också ha app. För att kunna åka. Jävla skit, säger jag.
So that's an honest and sometimes really hard reaction to hear to the way people react. And I think it leads us to one of the first challenges that we have. It's the bubble. We try to make innovations for all of us, and we try to really understand the needs of most of ICA's customers. But sometimes we tend to, when we try to look too far into the future, it tends to be, a forward-looking, technically advanced audience that we're working with. So I definitely think it's something that we need to keep considering, and we do in the way we set up our projects. And we set up what we thought was a solution called Framtidsfamiljerna, Future Families, which was a way to attract families across Sweden to be part in our projects, but that also ended up being mostly technically advanced. So we haven't really solved this. Then we have what we call the internal struggles or the growing pains. When we talk about ICAx, we talk about it as a child growing up. We're currently pre-teens, so we're acting out a little bit. But we have, found some areas where we really need to continue working. One being our internal KPIs. We started out measuring sort of how many projects we could deliver each year, just to make sure that the organization felt safe with us doing things. But it ended up being, not the quality we wanted in the projects, rather being really quick and maybe not producing the quality that we wanted. We also learned that things actually take time. You can't do things as fast as you think you can. Especially in later stages of our process, it's not enough to test for 2 weeks. You need to test for several months to make enough data to make good business decisions. And if we talk about what we talked about, the big operation, the big organization and the operations. First of all, ICA is not a startup. So the customers who interact with ICA have very, very different expectations than if you interact with a startup. You want things to work, you want people to understand what you're doing, and maybe they have a little less, as you heard, a little less empathy and understanding when things don't work. And the same goes for the merchants. Every day their life, they want to try things, that's for sure, but every day their life, and they want stuff that's connected to all of our IT systems and all of our things so that they can work. And we just want to go there and test and learn. And that's not really the same level that we're on. Also, something that's difficult for us is sort of the handovers. If we hand over too early, people tend to not have the space to experiment that they need to continue working with it. But if we hand over too late, there's not really an ownership within the organization. So those are some of the fails and challenges we've had. I'm going to end my talk a little bit with my conclusions or my thoughts. If you're starting a hub, these are my thoughts on that. So firstly, be short-sighted. And that might sound a little strange given that you are an innovation hub looking for the future. But if you think that a good strategy is what's going to build confidence in the organization, you're wrong. Being able to be flexible and being able to sort of change the way you measure things and the way you do things, that's going to give you a lot more credit. And also, you need to learn. You don't know yet. And I think that gives you more credit than anything else if you are, open about that. Team matters, and I think especially leadership matters. It's important that you have an environment that not only allows you to fail, but allows you to try new things and allows you to be in contexts where you learn new things. And I also think that having fun in the team, I know that's a cliche, but it really, really matters, especially in the pandemic times. I think having a space where you actually feel comfortable and supported is really, really important when it comes to having an innovation hub. And then we have the last one, which is, again, my personality. Be humble, but annoying. And it's really about finding the balance between, being inside or outside the organization. And I think you need to make a decision, be inside or be outside, and then change that decision. I think it's also fair to say that the organization is experts. You need to use them as experts. Make sure that your projects are set up the way that people are able to come into the projects and feel like they're providing value. Because I think it's good both for you and both for the organization to feel that way. And think about your tone of voice in every meeting. Think about how you talk about your organization and talk about ICAx or your hub. Because every meeting matters, and I think talking about sort of business case in the same way as everyone else is going to set the standard or the expectation. If you talk about opportunities and future cases instead, that's going to set a different expectation. And I also think it's important with the business value of failing. See yourself as a safety precaution for the organization. If you fail, it doesn't cost that much. But if they fail in a few years, it's probably going to be very expensive. And I also want to say find allies within your core organization, people who believe in you and help you create the space you need to keep being different. And process. Build your process and trust it, and then repeat. Understand that, as I said in the beginning, it's not going to be lack of ideas. It's going to be process, and it's going to be grit that allows you to continue working. And I think the process is really good for that. And to build your confidence and the organization's confidence, it's nice to have something to show that this is how we work. And I think that's important. And dare to be bold. Remember that hypothesis doesn't mean that you have to prove them right. And also remember to schedule challenges in your process. Have pivot workshops, have fuck-up workshops, have control-alt-delete workshops for you and your team in every project. And collaborate, and I mean outside the organization. Listen to everyone you can and meet everyone who's interested in meeting you. And then I have my last one, which is befriend the friction. And this is really a personal reflection for me. Being a consultant for quite a few years, I could sell you anything and it's going to take 12 weeks or 6 weeks if that's your budget. But in reality, an innovation project can go on forever almost. And you might have to redo and do things differently. And there's going to be friction, be it with the organization, in your project, in the results. And it's going to be hard, and you just have to live with that, because if it's not hard, you're doing it wrong. Thank you so much. Thoughts, questions, and other things in the chat. That was me.
Oh yeah, and you did really great, because I've been taking notes, and I have a lot of questions from me, but also from the people in the chat. So some of my notes were innovation needs structure, which is fantastic. And I mean, for anyone who's been working with innovation for a while, you know that. But as someone coming from the outside, innovation is that sort of unicorn magical thing that you think just happens.
Yeah.
So it really needs to be reminded that structured time and a process for innovation, that is what actually makes products at the end, products and services. And also finding the interesting problems and so on, and then redo and redo again. Some of my notes.
Yeah.
But we're going to skip right through my questions and go to the audience questions, because they are, of course, better. So let's talk about some of the things regarding the process.
Yeah.
Because these came when you were talking about the process and the notes.
Yeah.
So from Anneli, in the beginning, where do the assumptions come from? Do you have a own process or a framework or problems in a specific area that align with overall ICA strategy on topics that you would like to solve? So where do the assumptions come from?
Well, I think that differs. We usually work in a theme setup. So usually we've been working with health. And these are, of course, aligned with the priorities that the ICA Group has as a group. So that but we have a way of, or we have a mission to look sort of beyond 5 years. We need to look further. So I say the problems probably comes from, the strategies and the setups from ICA, or from, problems from our merchants and things like that. We don't really have a framework of sort of how to frame an assumption or how to do it. We just make sure that we collect as much information as we can, both internally and externally, about the project before we start. And then we evaluate, is this something that we can even get into? So I would say it comes both from our strategies that ICA has, but also from problems coming from the merchants.
How many projects do you run simultaneously?
That also differs. I think we have sort of an ambition to maybe do fewer and bigger projects. Who doesn't? But at the moment, I would say we do probably 6-7 projects. And then we also have an ongoing sort of theme research that's sort of ongoing throughout. And then we have internal stuff like this. That also takes time, of course, but 6-7 projects usually. Mm.
How do you measure traction in each step of the projects? This is a question from Zelia. How do you measure traction to decide how or if to proceed to the next step? And how are those decisions made?
Yeah, we have, based on sort of design thinking core, we look at viability, desirability, and feasibility. So when we start the project, we try to define hypothesis or assumption under each of these, so that we can both evaluate, is there a business need, is there a customer need, and is there a feasibility, both in terms of tech, but also in terms of, can we land it somewhere, and if not, can we own it? So the decisions are made sort of in each project. We have a steering group that can be both internal from ICAx and ICA, and external. And we have sort of a checklist where we go through different things. Does this fall, is this something where we see a big impact? Is this something we see really matters to the customers? Things like that. Mm. And that goes through every phase. So we can be in phase 3 and end up being that the technology is not good enough, then we can pause it.
Yeah. I'm just going to jump through the question because they're really good. So from Angela Jung, do you use tools to collect ideas, increase visibility of ongoing and failed projects in learnings where anyone involved in the ICA Group can contribute?
Not really, no. We have an internal sort of fail bucket that we talk about, and we also have a prize, internal prize, to the person who's failed the most. Not the most, but the biggest, and who learned the most. And I think we can definitely get better at sharing that with the rest of the organization and really using it. But we have, a retro, of course, in each project, and we usually share the retro with the rest of our team. But we are probably could get better at sharing it with the rest of the organization.
And let me reflect on that, because in startups and in innovation process, you always talk about how to fail fast. And I'm kind of tired of that because we need to learn fast. I mean, that's basically what you need to do. Of course, failure is not absolute failure as long as you learn something from it.
Yeah.
So I just want to steer away from fail fast to learn fast.
Agreed.
Please.
Yes, please.
Can we do that?
I agree.
We have a decision on that now. All right, here's a question from Hannah Yazdi. How do you assign responsibility for each member in ICAx? As I understood, you are 12 people and responsible for innovation projects across the portfolio.
Yeah, well, we have sort of different levels of responsibilities. When it comes to project responsibilities, that's something we assigned. We have a team that's sort of responsible to make sure that each Xlead has a project, and you also can, give input. If I find this really interesting, I would like to work within this area or try something in this area. So it's something that we do as a team, making sure that we have a balance in our portfolio. But then we also have sort of a higher level of responsibilities when it comes to building ICAx. Where, for example, I'm responsible for methods and tools, and that comes from my background. I think it's that simple. Ariella works with our startup setup, and I think it comes from interest and what you really want to develop more. And I think it's important to not only have your projects to work with, to look a little bit further, to keep developing X as an organization. I think that's something that you all need to be committed to.
I'm jumping through questions. How do you work with goal setting when the effects of the projects are unpredictable?
I wish I had a really great answer to this. We talk a lot about goal setting in terms of both impacts, in terms of, for example, we want to help 1 million people, 1 million Swedes live healthier lives. So we try to set really big goals that we sort of strive towards in our projects, and then we can have several projects going towards those goals. But when it comes to sort of, we don't set definitive numbers. We don't say we're gonna, increase by 10 billion. But we try to keep them quite light and quite sort of impact focused. And of course, we see there's a opportunity for an increase in sales or satisfaction. That's obviously something we will bring to the table when we discuss it. But I think we have the opportunity to be not so specific in our goals and rather have more missions and sort of that way.
I'm going to take a question from Elin Anger, maybe. Any of the tests that have gone out towards customers?
Yeah.
And I'm going to add that you are especially proud of. You talked about the Xlead store, for example.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm proud of all of our projects, even the failed ones. I think, the Xlead store has been the Järvsö. We also work with that in Järvsö, and the Järvsö store, which is the one that the people hated in the clip. But it burnt down, and we were able to, the actual store burnt down, and we were able to set up this obemannade store really quickly and actually give people access to a store through this obemannade setup. And I think that's something really nice. And I'm also really proud of how we managed to use Pronto for the pandemic.
Was that the one that was rolled out in 2 weeks?
It was rolled out to 100 stores in 2 weeks, and the team was working so hard, and I think it made a lot of impact. It was like this. It was more popular than Tinder in App Store for a while. So, I mean it was pandemic time. It was a pandemic times, but still, yeah.
Does it happen that you become emotionally attached to ideas that you later need to reject?
Yes.
And how do you avoid that?
I don't really avoid it. I think it's important to be emotionally connected to the stuff you do. I mean, Kill Your Darlings is an obvious one, but you need to care. You need to actually not see it as, just a project, because I don't think you're going to have the discipline it takes to go do and do and do and redo. So I don't think it's a bad thing to be emotionally attached.
I think we have quite a few more questions, but I also know that you will talk to people and get in contact with them maybe later, or they can get in contact with you.
Yes.
Because I have some things that I want to talk to you about when it comes to what we want to do at Women in Tech, is to make sure that people know that there is a future in tech.
Yeah.
And regarding that, how did you actually land the job at ICAx?
Oh God, no idea. No, I think I had the opportunity to talk to a headhunter who called me, and then we had a billion interviews. But I think how I landed it was probably sort of passion for customers and understanding. I think we really believe people who are passionate about things. It doesn't have to be the same thing. I prefer if it's not, but I am really passionate about insights, and I'm really passionate about understanding customers. And I think that's what they needed, because they're looking for sort of a mix of people. Some people have an ICA background, some people have a technical background, some people have. So I think for me it was, my experience in the methods and my passion for really asking a lot of questions.
And you came on board just before the pandemic hit, right?
Actually, I went on maternity leave when the pandemic hit. I've been here since 2018.
All right.
Yeah. So
it was a big shift for you when you went on maternity leave.
Yeah, I was home for a few months. The team has been home since March last year. They haven't.
How have you been working during the pandemic?
I think it actually has been really good for our team, because we work quite independently usually in our projects, and have always had these meetings where we're like, we have to meet more. But now we have a stand-up every morning that's quite informal. Last week we had a Spanish focus. No one speaks Spanish, so we just threw out Spanish words, and you get a lot of energy in that way. So I think it's been quite good for us. I think we actually see more of each other now than we did before.
So you managed to keep the creativity up even in digital meetings, because that can sometimes be a problem, that you tend to not be too creative.
I actually think sometimes we're better because we get less distracted. I think Miro and the digital tools that exist are really, really good. And I think you keep everything. We have like 40 Miro boards. We don't have to have those post-its that you lose and you forget where you put them. We really have everything, and you can go back, and it's much easier to really see what we thought. And I think some of my team are excellent at Miro. I'm okay, but I think it really works because people are quite committed to it.
Yeah. So do you need more colleagues?
Not at the moment, but we're always interested in people who are interested in joining us.
Yeah. But I know that ICA needs more.
Yes, ICA needs a lot more people, right? And then you can come to ICAx on exchange.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I have one more question for you, and it's how to keep up with future trends, and how do you do that? You're at an innovation hub in a big company. How do you keep up with future trends?
Well, I think that also goes back to what I was saying about the team. We do have a lot of space in our roles to actually take time to listen and read and go out and talk to people. And I think, of course, read all of the trend stuff and go through it, but I think especially talk to experts. Talk to people who know these things a lot better than you, because you're never going to be an expert in elderly care. So I think my advice is really try to connect yourself to experts and talk to people who are really passionate about it. Yes, I also read Mary Meeker, and I do all of this stuff, and I really put time in my schedule to have time. Not something I do between meetings, but something that we have an hour or several hours each month to really do. And I think that's important, and also almost expected, I think, for us. Any
unexpected sources besides Mary Meeker we all, of course, follow?
Yes. Well, unexpected. I think TikTok, just
be on the platforms.
Yeah, just I've gotten obsessed. You can ask my boyfriend. I've gone really obsessed. I don't even have I don't have my own account, but to me it's just TikTok.
Yeah. That's good. That's right now. And we actually got a special guest that we weren't sure if you were going to make it, Maria, because you were in a board meeting. So please come aboard. This is Maria Lundberg. She's the CIO of ICA Gruppen.
Hi.
So nice to have you, because we were hoping, but you never know with board meetings, right?
No, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
This is super exciting because we have so many events ongoing today. We have the board meeting talking about the data-driven transformation in ICA, and we have this event, and we also have a network gathering with the young female, the stars at the ICA that we are actually driving as a network, and I'm also hosting that one. So I'm all over the place, but I couldn't resist joining you for a few minutes.
Oh wow! Because you've been listening in on Sofina for a while, so that's really nice to get your time on that.
Yeah.
So, any reflections on what she's been telling?
I'm so super excited because I've learned new things every time I listen, and I'm part of the sponsor group for ICAx, but still I get new learnings when you're talking about what we're doing at ICAx and how we experience the evolution in the hub from where we started and where we are today. So, and I think. What get me really carried away is how you're describing the passion, because I feel that was why I was attracted to ICA from the beginning. The passion and the entrepreneurship, they really are aligned, and we need more passion. So I was so glad that you actually raised that the true passion for what you're doing and the projects.
And the mission for ICAx is sort of to explore and create, but also to challenge the organization, right?
Yeah.
Do they do that in the way that you expect them to?
Yeah, I think we have. I think we have a lot of. We have a dynamic. In the beginning, it was a bit challenging to find how to challenge. So I think it also has been a learning how to challenge actually, and I think also to receive, to find the good way of finding it a dynamic and really try to invent new thoughts and new ideas, and also find ways how to approach the integration that is needed at some point.
Definitely.
So we've learned a lot. So I think we are, and I feel that in a way, if we didn't have this dynamic, I think we would be going on too slow and not with too low ambitions. So I think it's good.
Because it's a brave thing to do as a big organization to sort of insert a hub and say, challenge us from the inside.
Yeah.
So it's a
But
special...
it comes down to, if we don't challenge them, someone else will. We're not sort of living in a vacuum. Because, I mean, there's competitors and people doing things. So I think that's also a thought, I think. You know, if we do it and we test it and try it and tell them, or them tell us, I think that's a part of the idea to, kill from the inside.
Yeah, especially. So you're the CIO. What role does IT and tech play in ICA Group? Because one might think it's just retail and food, but what's the role for IT?
I think if you look at the ICA Group, we are in the group as such. We are truly developing new services and our value proposition within an ecosystem. And that ecosystem is growing beyond the ICA Group. So we have the ecosystem of our own that is growing even more digital. Before, we used to more of having the focus on the grocery business and also selling the true stuff. But as we are growing into developing more services, because we need to do that to beat competition, we also are growing in our digital ecosystems. And that's very much about how we use our data, what platforms do we have, that are our platforms, and the tech really are core in the development of new services. So all ICA is actually a very digital business. So in that sense, tech and digital is key, and we are having very much in the transformation. We have plans for even further integrate business and IT, and don't work separately, don't sit separately. So really make it joint. Everything is the business transformation towards an even more digital business within ICA.
You must have a fun job.
It's loads of fun. And I would say that there is. You mentioned the need for having diverse teams, and I think when we talk about, I'm truly passionate about also supporting more women into tech, because I truly believe that we are getting better results. It's not another thing for me. I truly believe that it's a business aspect on that we have when we have more diverse teams, we are gaining better results because we have different types of aspects, different types of approaches, and we see your view and we can contribute and share. And the more different ideas you can have within a team, the innovation grows even better.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important for us to attract more women into the tech area within ICA and make the diversity and the inclusion of all in all aspects to really drive our transformation ahead.
I think that couldn't be a better ending, because that would sort of be my evangelist speech as well. We need better teams.
Yeah,
and better teams are created by people with a lot of different opinions and points of views and backgrounds and of course diversity. So,
and it's about tech, but it's very much about people.
Yeah,
I love to talk about people. So.
Yeah.
All right, so we are almost at 1 o'clock. This is Maria Lundberg, she's the CIO of ICA Gruppen. This is Sofie Karlsson, the Xlead at the Innovation Hub ICAx. I'm Elin Eriksson, I'm the Director of Women in Tech Sweden. And ICA is one of our fantastic partners, and it was so fantastic to be here today. Really happy to have listened in and to have met you today.
Thank you.
And thank you all for joining in. So many people, so great questions, and such a great energy. Thank you so much for today.
Thank you.